So now let's get into a little bit about dialog structure. The dialog is part of user interface consisting of display lines, dialog elements, and/or graphics, an output line for messages, and 8 horizontal and vertical soft keys. If we look down at this representation here, we can see that we have a dialog, and inside of the dialog, we've got machine status display, which is our header. We've got our dialog element, which is this here. And the rest of these are all additional dialog elements. Our vertical and horizontal soft keys. So our vertical soft keys are on the right, horizontal soft keys are on the bottom. We've got the diagnostic messages. So down here we can put a message inside of this dialog box here. We have our graphic, which is, in this case, this little picture here. The dialog itself, which is labeled number 7, is this entire window here. And the header line, number 8, is this section up here. As I said before, our dialogs are defined with the //m, which tells it to define a main dialog. The section below that is our variable definition. Underneath that, we have our soft key definition. And then underneath that, we have our start identifiers, actions, things like that, all of our methods. And then at the end of each section, we have the //end. So going back to my bottom up, you'll see that I have the same format, //m, variable definitions, soft key definitions, all of my press actions. In my anglehead.com file, not only do I have the press actions, but I also have a load section, and the load section is what defines some default variable values for helper variables that are located right here. In the case of the bottom up, I also have an output section, which occurs after your soft key definitions and whatnot. So you have to make sure that the program is structured in such a way, because if you put something above something else that isn't supposed to be in that location, you'll get an error. But sometimes the compiler won't even tell you what the error is. It'll just not work. So you have to be careful with your data structure and make sure that it goes in the sequence that they have listed inside the manual. If we look at the programming section of chapter 4.1, we can see that the syntax of a //m main command is broken down into an identifier, a header, a graphic section, dimension, system or user variable, graphic position, and attribute. So you can see in my bottomup.com file, I have the format pasted in as a comment, //m identifier. In my case, this identifier is main_menu. The text that comes up in my header is going to be measure bottom up. The graphic is bottomup.png. The dimensions right here are the window dimensions. The blank space is the system or user variable that I would tie to with this screen. And then here I have the position of my graphic. Digging a little bit deeper into it, there are a breakdown of each of the parameters. And you can see that under the attributes, there's different attributes that you can assign, and you separate them with commas. And you can also change dialog properties within methods. And as an example, a press block is considered a method. And you can use these little shorthand callouts for those types of things. And we'll get into that a little bit later on in the series, because there are different things you can manipulate within your dialog that you can change on the fly as you click on something or you change a value, you can have different things occurring within that cycle screen that you've created. And there's a whole section devoted strictly to that. We can see in section 4.1.3, defining dialog elements, that the dialog elements refer to visible parts of variables, short text, graphic text, input-output fields, and unit text. The properties are listed on this page here. If we look at position number 1, we'll see that our header line, long text, is here. Our dialog element is number 2, which is this section here. The short text is text on the far left-hand side of the created dialog. The graphic text is something that happens in between the short text and the input field here, or input or output field here. And what these are little shorthand calls that refer back to references inside of the graphic. So this section here is limited in characters. So is the short text, but this is limited even more so than the short text. If you need to put something in as a long value of text, you could either put it in the long text up here, or you could put it in a dialog down here. Section 4 is your input-output field, which is either a text box, a number box, or a toggle dropdown. Again, the graphic text is this little section right here. The text for unit is a small section to the right of the box. The main body of the dialog is the entire window. So as a side note, you're not limited to the explicit text that you put into your soft key definitions, your header definitions, your short and long text, things like that. You can actually store all of your language information in a language file, a separate language file that you can use to call up your text based on the settings that you have set up in your language file. There's a whole section in the manual, section 4.22 in this case, for how to set up your language text. And if you need a deeper example of how to use it, just let me know and I can send you the information. Or if you are on a machine with some of the Bloom laser cycles, a lot of the Bloom laser cycles have language files attached to them that will change, and you can use those as templates to see how that all works together. So as I mentioned, there is a way that you can assign an online help file, and the online help file is built using an HTML page, kind of like a website. So you would structure your help file as an HTML type document. They don't really go over it much here, but if you are familiar with building websites, or if you have a WYSIWYG type website builder, you can build a page for your online help documentation and save it as an online help file, and then when you access your mask, you can access that help file and it'll come up as a little HTML website.